Most remakes and remasters aren't that great. Most remakes are simply cash grabs to leech off of nostalgia for a quick buck. This is your Mega Man 2 on iOS. Other remasters are just reskinned versions of past games to put on a new console again and again and again and again for a quick buck. This is like your Skyrim Definitive Edition for the PS5 that did nothing to make the experience better. It made the ground look less awful. But then every once in a while there comes a remake that truly does something right, that recaptures the brilliance of a game's past while improving it on a visual level and on a gameplay level. Majora's Mask 3D is an excellent example of this, with its improved gyroscopic aiming, wonderful presentation, and tweaks to the time mechanic that made the game a lot more inviting to newer players. It's the definitive way to play Majora's Mask for me at least, and now I'm happy to say I can add the Crash, Bandicoot, and Sane Trilogy to that list of great remakes. When it comes to franchises like Crash, Bandicoot, and Spyro, I'm a fucking hard man to please. I grew up with Crash. My friend Austin had Crash 1, and since I didn't have a PS1, I would always find excuses to come over his house and play it. Does that make me a bad friend? I don't know. Also, my grandma told me back then that playing around with that dumb orange rat and the screaming Italian man would make me stupid, so I wasn't really allowed to play these games at home or a lot per se, so whenever I did, it was always a treat. Revisiting them today, they still hold up pretty well. Obviously, with any old game, the visuals could use some work, but there's a certain charm to Crash's model and environments. Platforming is tight, challenging, and distinct from other 3D platformers of the era, like Spyro or Mario. Look at how expressive Crash is. It's so hilariously amazing how there's so much care and polish put into these games. All three of them. Yes, I really did love all three of these games. Bandicoot 1, Cortex Strikes Back, and Warped were all great. Naughty Dog really knew how to push the primitive S1's hardware, and the three Crash games that they produced are perfect examples of their talents. But the remake wasn't made by Naughty Dog, it was made by Activision, and we all know the damage they've done to beloved platformers before. God rest his soul. Regardless, this made me kind of afraid that the Crash remakes would turn out to be soulless cash grabs, as Activision is the king of putting out soulless products and cash grabs. I half expected the Crash remakes to be an HD collection where everything is just upscaled and has clearer music. However, I'm so happy I was wrong. Turns out the people making the Sane Trilogy, Vicarious Visions, authentically cared about developing a game that appeased fans and could bring Crash Bandicoot to new audiences as well. They actually listened to feedback from the Crash community, promising fans to bring a Crash remake that was true to heart. In my opinion, they succeeded. First of all, the new and improved cutscenes are actually really well done for the most part. The animations are amazing, what with the free-flowing bounciness of the characters and all. Plus, the characters are as expressive as ever, especially Cortex in Crash 2. The scene where he monologues into a window and the camera is outside the window in space is brilliant. Cortex's facial expressions are simultaneously faithful to the original with some updated, added charm. Can I just say too, I really enjoy how the opening of Crash 2 flows seamlessly into the gameplay. This was one of the things I always liked about the original Crash titles. Every plot has a simple, easy to follow premise. Somebody, usually Cortex or Uka Uka, is up to no good and Crash Bandicoot has to stop them. Gameplay is emphasized over any and all narrative, and I'm glad the remake is faithful in that regard. The developers could have easily shoehorned in more plot and bogged down the pacing. The only nitpick I have with the cutscene ties into the minor gripe I have with the collection as a whole. If I could have changed one thing about the remake, I would have wanted it to be more colorful. Obviously, Vicarious Visions is going for a more realistic approach to the art style, and thus the colors have to be less saturated. Ratchet & Clank on the PS4 is one of my favorite platformers, despite the story, for the console, and I think if the developers took a page from Insomniac on how to make environments pop while still looking realistic, it may have been a bit better. Adding to this is that many of the cool effects, as others have pointed pointed out, seem to be gone or replaced by standard, bland-looking ones. As one example, when you pick up Wumpa Fruit, they do indeed fly up to the counter, but sort of stop when they get too close, unlike the original where they sort of popped into place in the counter. There are several other examples of this sort of neglect of detail many Crash fans may understandably be disappointed about. Now, of course, this is just a tiny gripe I have with the Sane Trilogy, just some bit of constructive criticism. It doesn't ruin the game at all. With some more added polish to the visuals, I think the remakes could have been almost perfect. The same can be said for the music, which has some weird choices for remixed instruments and sound design. Most levels have similar sounding music, but others have new instruments thrown in the mix to give it, I guess, an added updated flair? I'm fine with the changes because I don't think the songs sound bad. It's sort of like the Wind Waker HD approach to remastering sound, and I didn't mind that too much. Just something for Vicarious Visions to keep in mind if they ever wanted to, I don't know, remake the Spyro games in a similar fashion as the Crash originals. Please, if you're watching, and this remake collection does well, consider this Activision, please. Other than that, I think the remake is altogether solid. Crash definitely controls differently than he did in the past, as now the levels seem to be reimagined with analog control in mind rather than D-pad control. Do I think it's a detriment to the three games as a whole? Not at all. Different doesn't necessarily mean bad, and I think for what it is, the Crash remakes control well. You can still pull off cool maneuvers like sliding and jumping and rotating with ease. Gameplay is pretty much what you'd expect from a Crash remake. It's all three games with an updated graphical polish. Level design is the same, the objectives are the same, the boss fights are the same, the side objective of collecting the gems is the same, and the ending is the same. You get what you paid for here, no surprises. The only addition is being able to play as Coco Bandicoot in all three games, which is neat. Now, the lack of any new stuff to mess around with may be a huge selling point to you, or you might be saying to yourself, well, that's kind of lazy. I mean, when you look at other remakes, most have had some added content to get immersed into, like the new boss in Kingdom Hearts Final Mix or the new characters in Super Mario 64 DS. These new additions gave players an added incentive to get invested into, and I guess Coco Bandicoot is fine enough. I personally didn't care that this is a straight remake of Crash Bandicoot 1 through 3 with no big changes because Crash is super fun by itself without anything else. You don't need any new stuff, in my opinion. It was honestly just great to have played these games from my past again with some updated visuals and sound design. I like that Activision is attempting to bring Crash back, and no, I refuse to acknowledge you know what. And I honestly look forward to what they might do for Crash Bandicoot, not Skylanders Bandicoot, in the future. Maybe this is to gauge interest in some new game. That would be good if that's what Sony's cooking up or whatever. Regardless, should you buy the Crash Bandicoot Sane Trilogy for PS4 at MSRP of $40? Well, it all depends. If you've never experienced any of these games before, I think the remake is a good place to start, as sacrilegious as that may sound. It does a solid job at doing what it sets out to do, make Crash available for a wider audience and to bring back the nostalgia fans feel and love about these games. Despite minor issues that could have been fixed to make the game even better, this collection of games is great. I still don't think the remake is going to replace the originals because they have a special place in my heart purely due to nostalgia and my love of the PS1. But Sane Trilogy isn't half bad. It definitely doesn't warrant waiting for a price drop or sale. If you're interested in Crash but never played the original, now's as good a time as any. As always, if you disagree with what I said, let me know in the comment section below. Anyways, thank you so much for watching and take care. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.